Hey everybody, I am Amy and I am a mama of 3 and they are 7, 8, and 9 now. They're all a year apart, so my life has been a little bit crazy. I'm 33 and I have a wonderful husband, and I just kind of wanted to share my story with you. I'm going to break it up into 3 parts, and I wanted to talk to you in this first part about my childhood and how I have struggled since the beginning with emotional eating and stress, and how it kind of turned me into this person that I'll talk to you about as a teen and an adult, and then where I am now. So I was born in 1981 in Pennsylvania, and my mom was 17, I think, when she had me, and you know, my dad was a little bit older, on a lot of different substances. He was, and they were young. They were married until I was in 5th grade. I have a brother who is 4 years younger than I am, and we, lived. We weren't poor, but we lived, middle class, in an apartment. My brother and I shared a room for a while together, and the thing that kind of made my background what it is my parents used to fight big time. My dad was very abusive, mentally and physically, to my mom. He put her head through a wall one time in our closet. So it was a lot of turmoil in my house, a lot of scared feelings in my house, scared that you were always going to do the wrong thing because you were going to be on the receiving end of my father. So there was always a lot going on. We then moved back to actually where my grandfather lived, and my dad's dad, and he gave us some land, and my parents built a house, and everything kind of seemed to be pretty good. My dad worked like night shift, so he really wasn't home till like midnight. So we would go to school, and my mom would kind of take care of us and get us to all of our activities and stuff. We were very active in dance and cheerleading. My brother was a wrestler, played football. So we were really active, and we had a great support system. My mom's parents, my pop and my nan, which I'll talk more about later. They basically pretty much raised me, taught me a lot of things that I needed to be taught. And so, long story short, the abuse was just getting bad for my mom. They would fight all the time. My dad started in on me. My brother didn't get as much, but still got it too. And I mean, like, I'm talking about a belt and the never ending, like, you would hide in a closet for fear of what was going to happen. And in 5th grade, my mom met this person, and long story short, my parents ended up getting a divorce. And honestly, I was happy about it, because even though I felt bad for my dad, because I still, like, in my heart loved him and just always wanted his acceptance, which to this day still don't have, but that's a whole other story. We'll talk about that later. But it was just kind of this guy walking into our life, and it seemed like he was gonna give us everything that we needed. So we moved out, and my mom right away moved in with this guy, and he was, I mean, always at our games, at everything, was supportive, and everything was going good. And in 6th grade and then 7th grade, we moved to a house, and we were living in an apartment, and we moved into a house, and that's when some bad stuff really started to happen. I now know that this whole time they call it the grooming process, and I learned that from Oprah. Thanks, Oprah. But and now that I've gone through a lot of therapy, I've learned that it wasn't just sexual abuse, it was actually rape that he did to me for over a year and a half. And when you have been so beaten down your whole entire life from other people, and someone actually kind of like shows interest in you, and you build a trust in them, and then for them to take advantage of that, he's a sick F-U-C-K, and it was bad. It was bad. And to go through that in, middle school, and like everything's changing, and you've got friends, and you don't want anybody to know what's going on and everything, it was hard, and I didn't tell a single soul what was going on. There was a lot of mind games, and things that I was told would happen if I told, and things like that. So the abuse happened, and it was horrible, and but it kind of made me who I turned out to be. So I remember they got married, and I went to stay with my friend that night of their wedding, and I thought that everything was going to change because they were married. In my kid head, I thought, well, gosh, surely, like, he's going to marry my mom, and he's never going to touch me again. Well, that night I said, I'm going to go stay at my best friend's house at that time, because me being, a teenager, unfortunately, I knew what happened on a wedding night already. I was very knowledgeable of what happens, not by choice, but I knew, and I didn't want to be there. I was very uncomfortable, and it's just, I didn't want to be there. And so I asked to go, and he told me that, well, if I let you go, then you have to do this when you come home. And that's kind of how it went with him. And so basically I kind of felt like a hooker a little bit, but when I look back at things, but I was a kid, and I just have to keep telling myself that sometimes. Also, that was the night that I told my best friend what had been going on, and I begged her and pleaded with her not to tell her parents, not to tell anybody, and for a really long time I don't think that she did. I think she kind of kept that secret safe, but I went home that next day, and here he comes for me, and I made a decision right then and there, like, no more. I don't know why or what happened, but I made that decision that, no, it's not going to happen anymore. And I went and told my mom. I had her come in my room and tell her what was going on, and, well, she didn't believe me. And I thought, like, in that instant, my life was over. I didn't want to live anymore. I thought things were going to change. In my head, I had that huge thing in my head that, this was going to stop, and it didn't. Sorry, guys. But I went out into the kitchen, and I grabbed a knife, and I was crying, and I went to cut my wrist, and you can see I have this nice big scar. I was crying so bad, like I cut my arm, and still, like, it was brushed under the rug. I couldn't go to the hospital because people would know, and I'd be put on the top floor of the loony bin in the hospital, because that's where all the crazy people go, and you're crazy if you try to kill yourself. So later that night, I guess, my friend came over, and she stayed with me, and then he admitted it to my mom, and so I thought, okay, like, I'm okay with covering up that and making up this story that I was hanging up the the roof in the barn in the middle, like, cut my arm, slice my arm, I'm okay with lying to everybody at school about what's happened, because things were going to change. They didn't change. There was never a time that he hurt me again, but there were many times that he tried. And I would tell my mom, and then they would fight. So you can imagine in me living there in middle school the whole way up through, when I left my senior year for, when I finished my senior year in high school, he was still there. He was very much in my life every single day. And, you know, my mom didn't want to leave, for reasons that I will never be able to identify with. And, my mom and I, you know, we have a relationship, but we struggle sometimes, because now me being a parent, and me going through that, let someone touch my kids. Let someone touch my kids and see what happens. But, you know, I then started to really feel really bad about myself. I started struggling with bulimia, especially in high school. But in middle school, I wouldn't eat because I was so, like, about my body. Like, I wanted to be fit and thin, and I was, you know, very active in high school or college, or all of them really. I was very active as little, you know, I played softball, and so I was very, I was not, you know, I would say obese ever. I was very fit, like gymnastics build kind of thing, never like skinny as a rail. But when I looked at myself in the mirror, I saw something totally different than what other people saw. I was always down on myself. I would not eat, and then when I would binge, I would go make myself throw up. I used to turn on the shower and throw up in the toilet so no one would hear me, and then I'd flush later. Or I would throw up in the shower. It was disgusting, but I would do it because I was so concerned. And I was so really concerned about people looking at me and thinking and knowing what was really going on inside. A lot of people from high school will say to me, I never knew. I never would have guessed that that was going on, because I became so good at hiding everything from anybody. I did have really great friends in high school. I mean, and I was just blessed with them. And if I didn't have them, I don't even know. I had dated someone in high school that probably saved, you know, my life at that time, because I was able to be with him and get away from a lot of the things at home and everything. So, you know, what I struggled with was the emotional eating. Like, when I felt bad, I would eat. When I felt good, I would eat. When I was hungry, I would eat. When I wasn't hungry, I would eat. And I liked cake and pie and sweets and everything. A lot of anxiety I had. I was very worried about everything. I'm very paranoid that all these crazy things are going to happen, which, you know, I have some reason to be paranoid about things. They diagnosed me with PTSD. So, like, when I see, he was a truck driver, and when I see that driving down the road, I will clam up and I shudder inside, and I'll get goosebumps and stuff. That's like, I don't know why, but that just happens to me. And I started going on like a really rocky road. I wasn't a bad kid. I mean, I did some things in high school that I probably shouldn't have been doing, but you know, I cheered, and I never wanted to lose that. So I kind of tried to stay on the straight and narrow with things. And school, I loved being at school because I just loved being around people that I knew truly cared about me and loved me for everything that I was. And I was silly and spunky, and, you know, I'm still that way to this day, but always, like, inside I could turn in an instant to I'm not good enough, and there was something that I did to deserve this, and I'm never going to get out of here. I'm going to be here the rest of my life. And So I, applied for school for college, and I went to Slippery Rock up in Pennsylvania, and it was like the best thing ever. And I never wanted to come home ever, 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 ever. But that's kind of where I'm going to stop with that first part of my journey. Growing up, food was love for me. And like when I'd go to my grandma's and stuff, it was always, she made the best chocolate cake with vanilla icing. And like we would have these great cookouts and swim and stuff. And it was just like, I was so happy there. So the food kind of made me happy. And when I'd put it in, I'd be happy. But then afterwards, I'd look at myself. And I had an aunt that, who would make comments about me all the time, about the way I looked, and I was pudgy and I was husky and stuff. And you have people telling you that all the time. It's just like, it's like taking a little chisel and like from like your heart and just chiseling a piece away every single time. So that's where I'll kind of leave you with like kind of my childhood. And I know that, there's a bunch more that I could tell you about, but this video is going to get so long and I don't want to do that to you all. But so I'm going to stop this for now, and then I'll kind of go into part 2 and for the next video. So I really appreciate you watching, and I hope if anybody is watching this and you struggled with this, or you can relate to any of this, I want you to know that the abuse is not your fault. That things can change, and I'm going to tell you about how things changed for me.